do I find happiness? What can I do to be happy? I laugh a bit, only because the question, while clearly so sincere, is almost a question that ensures that there is no answer. Because the longer that we think that happiness is something that we're going to find or become or do something to have, actually the farther away we are from it. The Constitution of the United States of America says that we've all been granted the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it's actually, I'm sure that it was meant with full, wonderful intentions, and that people were going to prosper and thrive and be full of joy. The dilemma is that it has just perpetuated the sense that happiness is actually something we pursue. And so we keep pursuing, and we keep pursuing. And whether we are pursuing it in shopping centers, or we're pursuing it in courses and classes, or we're pursuing it in something we can download, the message is always that it's something or someplace else. Happiness is something that's actually available to us only in one moment, and that's the present moment. You cannot be happy tomorrow, and you cannot be happy yesterday. But most of us think, well, I'll just do this today and then I'll be happy tomorrow. And the problem is that you actually cannot experience joy when you're not in the present moment. When our memories bring us joy, or plans for the future bring us joy, it's only because we're able to experience them now in this moment. So only right here, in this breath, do we have a chance at happiness. And that's actually very exciting. Because it means that right here, and right now, and in this breath, is all we have. And is all we need. What has happened to us, and the reason that the question comes up over and over, I mean, it's one of those that wherever we go, the question comes up in various forms, is that we've been indoctrinated to believe that we're not enough. That there's something about us that's lacking. And that if we just change in a certain way, by owning something, becoming something, looking a different way, going somewhere, just this vacation, then we'll have it. And all that does is keep us one thing away from happiness. I remember I had been in India about, I don't know, maybe a year and a half or so. And I was going back to America, and I'm a scientist by heart and by inclination and by academic experience. And so I love science. And I had decided I was going to do a personal scientific study. And I found about 10 or 12 people I knew, all of whom were at the pinnacle of different spheres of their expertise. So someone who was a billionaire CEO of a top company, someone who was a well-known actress in Hollywood, someone who played on the LA Lakers, someone who was a tenured professor at Stanford. You get the idea. So people who everyone else is running to try to become. I mean, if we're in business, of course, we'd love to be a billionaire CEO of a company. If we're in academia, we'd love to be a tenured professor at an Ivy League school. We'd love to be an actress or a singer. And what I did was, in speaking to each of them, I asked them one question. I mean, I had long conversations, but they didn't know I was only interested in one question. And that one question was, are you happy? And because they were people I knew well, I could ask it without arousing any suspicion. And what I got from every one of them was, I will be happy when. And of course, they all had different fill-in-the-blanks. It was, the mortgage is paid off and the kids go to school, I lose 10 pounds, I get a raise. Whatever our thing is, they each had one of those. Or, I would be happy if my husband worked a little less, the kids would study more in school, I could squeeze back into the skirt I wore last year. People who actually had attained what most of the rest of the world is running, is forsaking everything to get to. Forsaking our spiritual practice time, forsaking our family time, forsaking our health. Because I just have to get there. Then I'll be able to relax. Then I'll be happy. And yet those who had reached still had that one thing between them and happiness. And what it does is it makes us realize how foolish the pursuit. How much we become like that, I can't remember if it's the cat or the dog, but who runs after itself chasing its own tail. So when we know that the only moment we can have it is right here in this breath, we say to ourselves, okay, well then what is it that's keeping me from being happy? If it's here, if it's not in the money, if it's not in the degree, if it's not in the title, why am I not experiencing it? And for most of us, the reason is we're not here. And if we're not here, we can't experience joy. When our minds are somewhere other than in this moment, in this breath, we cannot experience it. And that's what most of us do. It's all about, it's the past, whether it's 5 minutes ago or 30 years ago. We're constantly thinking and planning, comparing ourselves to somebody else. Oh, what a nice shawl. I wish I had a shawl that looked like that. Or, God, she looks really good today. What did he say? And our minds are going like this. And this is where the practice of meditation becomes so important. And why, when we practice meditation, or when we're in the presence of that, we actually experience it without doing anything. Because something has brought us into this moment. And in this moment, we realize that it's all there. Otherwise, what ends up happening is we become pawns in the hands of society, pawns in the hands of the media. You know, the example that I always give about this is you look at commercials, and we'd like to think that we're more sophisticated, and yet advertising is a billion-dollar industry. They wouldn't do it if it didn't work. And you look at commercials, and you look at, for example, my favorite example being the soap commercial. Well, what does soap do? It cleans us. So an honest commercial for soap would say, this brand of soap cleans you better than that brand of soap. It removes so many micro particles of bacteria more than this brand of soap. But they never do. No soap commercial ever talks about parts per million of bacteria that they wipe off. What does a soap commercial look like? A beautiful woman is lathering up in the shower in the morning, and she's singing to herself, and then her equally beautiful husband comes into the bathroom, and he's also singing. They walk out of the bathroom together, and miraculously their child has gotten himself out of bed, and eaten his breakfast, and done his homework, and dressed himself. And now they walk hand in hand out the house. The kid's got his lunchbox in his hand. And you see Dove or Zest or whatever the commercial is. We're not selling cleanliness. Nobody said, oh, Mom, you smell great. God, you smell so much better than yesterday. We're not selling cleanliness. We're selling happiness. We're selling happy families. And the message to us becomes, well, if you don't feel like singing in the shower in the morning, or your husband doesn't sing when or wife when they come in the bathroom, or you don't have a husband or wife, or your child doesn't wake himself up, you've got to drag him out of bed. Force him to eat his breakfast, force him to take a shower. Or you don't have a child. Well, the problem is you're using the wrong brand of soap. And we laugh because, as I said, we'd really like to think we're a lot more sophisticated than that. And yet, they wouldn't be spending millions of dollars if we weren't buying it. And so we go on changing our brands of soap, changing our brands of jeans, our brands of mobile phones. But we're still one thing between us and happiness. And that's where the spiritual practice says to us. They don't say, do this, do that, get rid of this, get rid of that. If you had to bring together paths, teachers, one of the most fundamental essences that you find is be present, breathe, be aware of the breath, meditate on the breath. As Pujya Swamiji says, expect less, accept more. Because that's the other side. We expect from others. That's the other thing that ruins our happiness. Is we expect the rest of the world, whether it's our loved ones, whether it's our employers or our employees, whether it's the weather, to do what we want. And when it doesn't, our happiness is gone. And this is where Pujya Swamiji always speaks about us being like light switches that somebody else just switches on and off and on and off. But if you look at the analogy, for example, of the ocean, well, there's waves on the ocean that go up and down. And that's the outer world. Whether it's the stock market, whether it's interest rates or mortgage rates or our loved ones or the weather. And if we anchor ourselves in that, if we anchor ourselves in how other people are treating us, if we anchor ourselves in how well our stocks are doing and how much we weigh and how much success we're getting, we're going to go up and down with it. But the answer is not forget the world, forget the ocean, run away to the mountains. The answer is simply dive deep into it. Because on the depths of the ocean, it doesn't know about waves, it doesn't know about storms. It's always still. And so, in short, where do I find happiness? Inside. And how do I find it? Being still and letting go. As we breathe, as we exhale, we just let go of expectations. Let go of our attachments to how we think it should be. Otherwise, the world becomes just like our vending machine that we expect. We put in $1 bill and we expect what we want should come out. And when it doesn't, we kick the machine and think it's broken. But to just be able to realize that that which is coming out of the machine, that which is being handed to us, is exactly what we need in that moment. And how to stay present with that. And how to find the divine in that.
Me invita a estar en el presente. Pero tarde o temprano algún recuerdo o alguna incertidumbre irrumpe.
But always some remembers or some worries comes in your mind.
¿Es posible que ese estado de felicidad o esa conciencia sobre el presente pueda abarcar en algún momento el pasado y el futuro?
Is it possible that this consciousness of present can embrace the past and future?
¿Cómo?
How?
Can the consciousness of the present embrace the past and the future? Yes. I'm going to give you two different answers. Because it depends on which plane of existence you want to be on. Neither is better or worse. They're just two different planes. On the plane of what most of us identify as ourself. So this physical body, my history, where I've been, what's happened to me, what I wanted to happen to me that didn't happen to me, what I didn't want to happen that did happen, what I've learned, what I've achieved, and all of the things for the future. That based on how I identify myself, I want to happen. Or I really don't want to happen. On that plane of existence, the present should not bring the past and the future, because otherwise this is the game it plays in our mind. I'm sitting here trying to meditate on my breath, but it's like a movie is playing in my awareness, like someone has turned on a projector. And all of the bad things that ever happened to me, I'm seeing them again. And I'm full again of the pain and the anger. Or all the good things that happened to me. And I'm wondering why they had to end. Why am I not having them now? And then we flip the switch and now my future movie is playing. How it might be, how it should be, how I don't want it to be. And so I cannot simultaneously be here in my breath and be in both of those places at the same time. I cannot be bathing in love in this moment, in pure, boundless oceans of love, and be there at the same time. And the reason is that the more active my mind is, my brain is, the more it takes me out of my heart and my breath. And in the present, my heart is very open and very active. And in the present, the experience of who I am changes. I'm no longer this body. As I meditate deeper, what I find is the very body starts to dissolve. Many of us, when we first start meditating, have an experience where you lose the sense of where your leg ends and the cushion you're sitting on begins. And it's a very common experience, and what it gives us is a taste of what's possible. If I might actually lose where I end and the cushion begins, might I be able to lose where I end and the world begins? Might that border and boundary also be not quite as distinct as I thought it was? Might I really not be quite as solid as I thought I was? And so we start expanding into experience, into the spirit. And when I say spirit, I don't mean something really far out there. I mean just the true sense of ourselves that's not different from each other. My physical material sense says, I end here. There's this empty space. You begin here. You end over here. There's this empty space. She begins here. But when I connect to the spirit, we realize there's no place I end and you begin. That same spirit is flowing through us. So on that level, we definitely don't want to try to bring our memories, our plans, our fears of the past and the future into our present moment meditation. And yet, I guess we could, for the sake of semantics, call it a higher level, but I'd like to do this without any judgment. We'll just call it a different level. It's actually all happening at the same time. And on that level, Yes, of course they can all be there together. There's a beautiful story of Krishnadasa's guru, Neem Karoli Baba, which I love about this, where it's a story told by Ram Dass where they were driving from Varanasi back to Delhi, and they actually had been searching for their guru. They didn't. It was obviously in a time when it wasn't that he carried a mobile phone or a beeper, or you could just, figure out where he was. And he always used to try as much as possible also to kind of not have too many people around him all the time. So they were in Varanasi and decided to leave to go back to Delhi. And they get a big bus. And as they're driving to Delhi, they pass Allahabad, which is a very, very sacred place. And the Kumbh Mela had just finished. And so one of the people in the group said, we should go and have darshan in Allahabad. It's very, very sacred. But in the bus, of course, lots of people didn't want to go because the ride to Delhi was very long and far, and they wanted to get there. They were hungry and tired. And so there was kind of this conflict going on in the bus of, we take a detour, we don't take a detour, we take it, we don't take it. And finally they said to Ram Dass, okay, as the oldest, you decide. And he thought and thought and thought and finally said, okay, fine, let's go. Just a few minutes, we'll stop very, very briefly and have darshan. So they go, and the person who had been there during the Kumbh on the bus says, there's this wonderful Hanuman temple. Let's go have darshan there, and then we'll get back on the road to Delhi. As they drive to the Hanuman temple, out the window of the bus, they see Maharaji, their guru, and he's standing there. And so, of course, they stop the bus and jump out and fall at his feet. And the man with him says, "Come, come, we've been expecting you." And they said, "What do you mean expecting us?" And they said, just follow us. So they get back in the bus and they follow to the home of this other man. And as they arrive, his wife comes out of the house. And again, of course, remember, no mobiles. So it wasn't that they had called ahead. They get there and she says, "Oh, we've been waiting for you all day. Dinner's ready." And they all said, what do you mean? And they said, "Well, our guru woke us up at 6 o'clock this morning and said, start cooking. There's going to be 35 people here for dinner." And the exact number of people who had shown up on the bus, it was maybe not exactly 35, 32, 33, something like that. The exact number of people on the bus were the exact number of people that she had been told to cook for. So stories like that make us realize in a very specific way what the sages and the saints and the rishis of all of our ancient religious mystic traditions have been telling us, which is, it's all here. You only think you're moving from one day into the next day. So on that level of existence, yes, of course, the past and the future can be with us in the present. You have no option. But it's hard to live in that plane of existence. And so for the ease of the sadhana of most of us, who are still struggling with our human path, in which it really does feel like the days follow each other sequentially, and the hours follow each other sequentially. In that level of existence, it's important to stay present. And it doesn't mean we don't take the love and the joy and the lessons of the past, and it doesn't mean that we don't have great excitement for the future. It just means that we live and we breathe in the present. Last, how do we know what's best for our children? As Krishna Das said so beautifully, yeah, just ask them. The problem becomes that as parents, we want the best in theory, but we also want that the best should kind of come in the package that we think it should come in. And so we have in our minds a package of what that best is. And so we try to shape our children into that package. The problem with that becomes that there's very little time and space to actually see who our children are. If you have a garden, for example, and in that garden you've got roses, and you've got jasmines, and you've got sunflowers, and you've got apple trees, and you've got grapevines. Well, they're all equally wonderful, but they need different amounts of water. Some grow best in the shade, some grow best in the sun. Some are going to give you fruit the first year, some you're going to have to nurture until you get the fruit. And when a little sprout starts to blossom, this child has come out of us. Because we're wearing glasses of roses or of jasmine or of sunflowers, that's what we think this child is. And that doesn't mean that it's bad. We're doing it out of the very best intentions that we possibly can. It's just that we're also human. And we can't see everything. And so we water and we nourish this sprout, thinking, for example, that it's going to be a peach tree. But then instead what start to grow are apples. And in our mind, well, that's all wrong because this is a peach tree. And so then we take it to the peach doctor, right? And we buy it the peach clothes, and we chant the peach mantras, and we have, the special peach decoration for it to make it understand its peachness. We sing peach songs to it. We give it the peach empowerment program. And again, we mean really well. We really think this is a peach, and that I need to help it become a peach because peaches are pink, and they're peach color, and they're beautiful, and they're kind of fuzzy, and this thing on the branch is green and hard, and not juicy at all, and kind of sour a little. And so we do the very best we can. But because we've got those peach glasses, we never realize, oh my God, it's an apple tree. And so neither can that tree ever be a peach tree, nor are we able to nourish it the way an apple tree should be nourished. And so this is where we find ourselves saying, everything's gone wrong with my child. They don't listen, they don't do this, they don't do that, they don't give me juicy peaches. And as a parent, it really is our duty, and of course, ideally we start as young as possible, to try to see, who are they? What's growing? What's blossoming? And then how can we nourish that? And the last piece, just to quickly give you, is in our well-meaning effort to mold our children, we do this praise and criticism, punishment and reward thing. And what that does is makes our child believe that he or she is responsible, not only for their lives, but for our lives. Even if we are the non-violent type, and so, okay, we don't beat them, we don't starve them, we don't lock them in their room, but we just show our disappointment. Mom is now sad. I didn't bring home an A, I brought home a C. Mom is now sad. Well, what does that mean? In addition to everything else that I have to deal with as a young person, now my mom's mental state, mom's health. Mom can't eat her dinner because I brought home a C. Now it's not just about my exam and my future, but it's Mom I'm letting down. And that's the worst mistake we can make. Because no child should have to go through life feeling that he or she was born to keep Mom together. And so it doesn't mean that when they bring home C's or D's, we say, fabulous, well, that's great. I'm so glad you're a failure. Yeah, I was a failure too. Thank God you're not going to become anything. But there are ways to encourage and to foster a nourishment of who that child is and what their strengths are. And to draw that out and to empower the child without making them feel that they have to do it because otherwise Mom's going to fall apart. Mom is whole, Mom is centered, Mom is grounded, Mom is Mom. And I'm over here, blossoming as my own tree, with Mom's nourishing, with the sun, with the water, with the guidance. But it's not that she needs my branches to hold her up. Have a beautiful evening, everyone. To bring juice, more juice to your life.